So my days mixed up. June 1st, the hour is 3:54, starting right on time. And I hereby call to order the Budget Committee of the Memphis City Council. Ms. Owens, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Jones?
Here.
Councilman Ford?
Present.
Councilwoman Logan?
Present.
Councilwoman Robinson? Chair Carlisle. Oh, Councilman Morgan.
Is here. The chair observes a quorum. Colleagues, good to see you. I hope you all had a relaxing but somber Memorial Day weekend, remembering what we're honoring there. Good to be back. We've got a couple of follow-ups. One is the Aging Commission, which we're going to hop into here real quick. We're printing out the air quotes wish list. For many of you, including the administration, it's the first time seeing the comprehensive list in the order of magnitude. And so when we wrap up with some of the follow-ups, I'd like to dive into the wish list in general and have kind of a discussion about it. And then we'll kind of go from there. We'll just kind of see where the conversation goes. I don't know if today's the day to start trying to haggle and cut and chat. What I'd like to have happen is, now that you're seeing it, is specific to some of the numbers, and I don't want to call them arbitrary, but specific to numbers that didn't have, like I'll use Canal as an example. We know that there's $1 billion need for affordable housing, but we suggested 10 million. That number was a number that we ultimately pulled out of thin air. So the question is, can we cut 5 million out of that so that we can fund some other program? And so to start taking time to think about that. And then if there's a specific director that you have something, or there's something on this list that you would like to have come to our next wrap-up meeting, this is my ask, so that we don't have to fill the room with a lot of salaries and people's time, is if you'll get your analysts to get a list of people, directors that you would like to have come, because you're going to have questions for them directly to this or something related to budget. If you'll send that to Brianna, and then we will coordinate with Chief Ryan and Chief Ford and the administration to have those directors come, tell them a little bit of the subject matter, and that way they can prepare to come so we can have a robust discussion about it. And we're not wasting time. Like I felt terrible that some people may have sat in the room for 3 hours and not be called on. So that's just to try and do that. All right, so that being said, let's go to the Aging Commission's follow-up, and then we'll take it from there. Welcome back.
Thank you.
If we get your name and title for the record, and the floor is yours.
Yes, Kim Daugherty, Executive Director of the Aging Commission of the Mid-South. And thank you all so much for asking me to come back, and thank you for your interest in the Aging Commission and the services we provide. I have a little bit of information for you to set the background, and then you guys had sent over some specific questions, one of which is to explain the state's funding formula, and I'm going to attempt to do that. It's something I'd hoped to never have to do in public, but I'm going to give it my best shot because it's pretty convoluted. And then Councilman Warren sent over a question about our SHIP program, and Councilwoman Robinson sent over a request about how might help with some staff. And so we're going to address all of that for you all in this presentation. The Aging Commission in the Mid-South serves Service Area 9, and Service Area 9 is Fayette, Lauderdale, Shelby, and Tipton counties. And the triple ADs, all right, somebody remind me which button I'm pushing to advance my slide. Hey, thank you. I was trying this one. Oh my. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. We'll go back real quick. So the Aging Commission is founded based on the Older Americans Act of 1965. And you see a list of services that are provided through the Older Americans Act. And those, for the most part, are the services that we offer as well. Other things that the Older Americans Act did were money for training, senior employment, and grants. And then, as you all know, the Aging Commission is a AAA-D. And our functions and responsibilities are to coordinate and offer services to help keep older persons remain in their home and be independent. As I mentioned, we support Fayette, Lauderdale, Shelby, and Tipton counties. There are 9 AAA-Ds across the state of Tennessee, and they follow the development districts. They follow the development district's geographic lines. And here you're just seeing the objectives of the Older Americans Act that we are tasked with hearing. We have 4 main goals, and these goals are given to us by the state of Tennessee, who is our primary funder of Older American Act funding, and that's to ensure that the programs and services are cost-effective and meet best practices. And so I provided you all with the main objectives that we work on throughout the year, and you will see that a lot of them are about phone contact and helping people with resources, nutrition services, home-based services, family caregiver services for families who are particularly caring for a family member with dementia in their home. Additionally, we're tasked with developing partnerships in the aging network and other community-based organizations, local governments like the City of Memphis, healthcare providers, and state departments to advocate and reduce gaps in services. And so at this time, we're working particularly on mental health information for older persons. The COVID emergency pandemic was very difficult and isolating to many seniors, and so we found ourselves gathering more information and helping people with behavioral health needs. We work with adult protective services when they identify a senior or a person with disabilities who is in a situation where they need access to long-term care. They may be abused, neglected. Our third goal is to make sure that our programs, which are funded by the state, are cost-effective. We work on, as you all know, a lot of food resources, and as I mentioned to you all last week, we actually act as the court-appointed guardian for a number of people. And then our fourth goal is to ensure Tennesseans have information about aging issues, able to make informed decisions about living and independent living for as long as possible, and helping them access long-term care. So here's the fun part. You guys said, hey, Kim, could you explain to us TCAD's funding formula? And so they send us money in pots. And so I hope they made you guys a copy of this. But so options funding is raw state dollars. And they give each AAA-D a base of, and I like to, when I explain this funding formula, talk about $1 million. So what do they do with $1 million? So in the options funding, for each $1 million in options funding, each AAA gets $50,000. And then the rest of that money is distributed based on the number of people 18 or plus who have self-care limitations. So in our area, 26,187 persons of the 173,449 persons are 14%. So that portion of that $1 million left after the $50,000 base is distributed, we would get 14.98%. That's raw state dollars. Then move in, and with that money, we purchase personal assistance and homemaker services, food boxes, home delivered meals primarily. Then they give us an allocation of money for our senior centers and to provide some match for federal funding. And in this funding, again, imagine $1 million, $5,000 per county, so we would get $20,000 of that. And then the initial is distributed using 50% of the population over 60 and 50% of the low-income population over 65. So there I've included the percentages our area meets in each of those areas, which is 13.7 and 16.33. That's divided by 50, and then you add those two numbers, and then you would see that we would get 15.14%. Regarding the guardianship services that I mentioned to you all provide, we get 120. We get a base of 120,000 for each organization supporting 21 to 40 people. We support about 43 people at this time, so we get a little more than the base. And then the NSIP, and I apologize for putting NSIP up there, that stands for Nutritional Services Incentive Program. And we just distribute that based on the percentage of people who are receiving what we call 3C eligible meals. Those are home delivered meals. And in our area, we get about 17.79% of that particular allocation. And here's the fun one. So this is the large part of money that's given to the AAADs across the state. And so this is the Title III and the Title VII money sent by the Older Americans Act. This is the bulk of the federal funding sent to the state of Tennessee. And so they have quite a formula to determine how much of these funds you receive. And so, again, think of this in each $1 million in this category. And so each of the AAADs get a $100,000 base, and then it is distributed based on the formula. 30% of the population over 60, 30% of the low-income seniors, 100% of poverty level over 65, 10% of low-income minority seniors, 100% of the poverty level over 65, 15% of the rural seniors over 65, 10% of the population over 80. They would then add all of those percentages together, and you would see that we would get 16.242% of that funding. This funding also holds harmless so that the 95% kicks in and you never get less than 95% of the money you got the year before. In the Title III services, we are required a local match. And so, as I've mentioned to you all before, the money that you all send to me each year is super important because it helps me provide local match. The data that is used to calculate these formulas that you see today is from the 2023 American Community Survey conducted by the U.S. Census. And this formula that is used is part of the Tennessee Secretary of State's official compilation of rules and regulations of the Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disability. So this formula is in a state rule and regulation. I hate to ask it, but does anybody have any questions about that information? I'm so sorry. I think sometimes when I talk about stuff like this, people think, well, that lady's just making this stuff up. I promise I don't make any of this up. It is all in state rule and regulation how the federal funds and the state funds are divvied up among the area agencies on aging and disability.
Yeah, I mean, you're clearly an expert, which is always great to have one of those. But no, this is helpful. One, tongue-in-cheek for fun of like why people hate government. And then
example one.
Right, exactly. It's like, honestly, who sat down and came up with this?
Right,
So,
right. And I would say that this formula, for lack of a better thing of calling it, has to be approved by the federal government by the ACL group. That's the Center for Living, which manages the older services, older American services. And so they present that to them, and it's approved, and then it's adopted into state rule and regulation.
All right. I'll just add one more comment. I just sent you all a text. If you haven't been seeing it around the country, in April, the LA Times covered it, NPR covered it. Last week, the Washington Post wrote an article about the baby boomer generation and the fact with 401ks taking hits, in the Great Recession, 15 years ago, and then the way that the job market moved, and now they're on a fixed income with rising inflations, home value equity issue. I mean, all these reasons about how the baby boomer generation is overwhelming major municipalities and becoming one of the largest homeless segments. Yes. It's fascinating. I mean, and it's not just places like LA, it's across the country.
Yeah, I would love to talk to you all about the need for senior housing someday if anybody really wanted to talk about that. It is one of the vast needs in this community. I just heard you were talking about affordable housing. You know who needs affordable housing?
Senior housing.
Seniors.
We're going to have a very robust conversation on that. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund, for what it's worth, is for me, it's interchangeable with Affordable Senior, right? Like we're looking to do, I don't know how many units we did through Accelerate, but it's not enough, but this group cares greatly about that.
Once upon a time, I was the chair of the local homeless coalition, and so I have quite a background in homeless services. And I can tell you in our community, year after year, that age of the person who's homeless inches up. It just inches up. And so, like the rest of America, it is becoming an ongoing issue in our community. So, Councilman Warren had asked that we address the state health insurance program. And this, talking about a service that is of value to every senior, the state health insurance program is. In this particular program, we offer free Medicare counseling to anyone who contacts us. And if you guys have parents who are older or anyone in your life who is on Social Security and receives Medicare, you know that they are inundated. The phone is just on and on and on with people trying to sell them Medicare Advantage projects and that sort of thing. And frankly, seniors don't get great.
We talked about this last week.
Seniors are inundated with sales calls, not information. And so we offer free advice to help people choose plans that are most economical for them. And we literally save seniors millions of dollars a year in choosing the appropriate plan for them. Because I can't tell you how many times we hear a horror story. You probably hear this. I chose X plan and now my doctors aren't covered by that plan, or my medications aren't covered by that plan. But they sounded so good on the phone when I talked to them, and so I chose them. And so we, particularly during open enrollment, we are out in the community every day doing this work live and doing it by phone. But I will say this to you, one way you could help us is if in your local community you have locations, community centers, churches, anything like that, shoot me an email anytime and we'll get some people out there to help those groups with this particular program, because no matter what your economic situation is, you need help with your Medicare choices. And then, Commissioner Robinson, thank you so much for asking, what could you do to provide some additional help to us? I sketched together a pretty easy budget for you, but two things. What we need desperately right now is more help answering a phone and then providing expert information to the people who we're calling back. So the technician is somebody who answers the phone, can take messages for us, put those in the system, and move them on to the information specialist. And that information specialist is AIRS certified. What that means is that they have a national accreditation on providing information and referral services, and we get those out. We receive nearly 20,000 or more calls a year, and any help you could do would help. I would tell you that this, is a continuing need. It would not in any way replace the 149. This would be an additional 110 that we would need annually to keep this effort up. But thank you all so much for asking, and thank you all for being interested in what we do. And I would be delighted to talk to you at any time about what we do, more information about how it works, needs of older persons in our community, anything I can do to provide you more information that would help your work or help you advocate in other circles for seniors.
Thank you. Councilwoman Logan, and then Smiley, and then Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you so much for this information. It is really helpful. The positions you put in here, this is to, you need more than one of these or just one position for the information?
So we already have some of these folks, and so these would be additional in each of these categories.
So 2 additional.
Yeah, this would just be 2 additional positions for that area.
Okay. And so when you mentioned about going out into the community, who actually would go out into the community?
So, for example, the example I was using was the SHIP program. We have trained people, 2 trained staff members who are in the community. We also operate a cadre of volunteers who help us with that SHIP. Regarding who actually goes out into the community, any staff person at the Aging Commission might go out into the community, just depending on what the task may be. There were lots of folks who, when COVID happened, they stopped doing visits and stopped doing this and that. We never stopped doing visits because we work with seniors who are very isolated. Many of them have difficulty in completing applications. This is not a group who completes their application on a computer. Don't misunderstand me. Some folks do, but for the most part, people need help. We might have people with hearing deficits, vision deficits, even language, speaking another language, and we'd be working to do that. So just depending on what you're asking for and what the task is, it depends on that group who would go out.
So us providing these funds, how exactly will it impact what you're doing? And the reason why I'm asking is because, you know, one of the reasons for asking you to come down was because I didn't understand how you could call for information and have to wait 4 months. So I wanted to know, you know, what's going on and how does that work? So us providing this for you, how will it impact better service or faster service or being able to reach more people and provide information?
Absolutely. So providing assistance in this area helps us return calls quicker, get to seniors quicker, answer their questions quicker, and get resources to them quicker with both of these positions. So it's a great impact. And you know how it is when we all need something, we'd like to get an answer for it pretty quick. And I will tell you, my experience with seniors is they wait as long as they can to ask for help. Mm-hmm. They really do, right? Like people don't want to give up their independence, or they don't want to let folks know they're not quite as independent as they were. And when they begin to ask us for help, you know, we really need. A lot of times it really is like something that you and I would consider past a dire need even.
So what's the best way for the caregivers or the children or family members of seniors? What's the best way for them to get the information? Because most of them that I come in contact with have no clue of senior services, what to do, where to go. They just know that their loved one needs help and they don't know about the insurance.
222-4111. And that question...
222-4111.
And that question you just asked me is why I need those 2 people.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that. So one of the things we do is filter all these calls into one number. Mm-hmm. And so it is tens of thousands of calls a year. And this task, and I think I mentioned this last week, even if we can't get a service to you right away, answering that phone, being reassuring, talking through options that may be beyond what we offer to families is what people need, right? Mm-hmm. Like sometimes we do have to put people on waiting lists, but just listening to people and talking through their problems and their difficulties with them and talking to them about all the resources in the community people really need. And lots of times people just don't know.
So is this like a call center?
It is a call center in the building over there at 160 North Main. That line people call. It's either answered by a live voice or by a messaging machine or service. We're taking those messages and getting them back out. And we're
Okay.
making every attempt we can to get you a call within 2 business days. Like our goal is 2 business days. And so what you're asking is exactly why we need these positions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Chair.
you.
Councilman Smiley.
So real quick question. A lot of times we, in the city of Memphis, we have 1,000, I'm using that number extremely loosely, several positions available. And I think our difficulty is filling those positions. We provide funding for these positions. Are you confident you'll be able to fill them?
I am confident I'd be able to fill them. Thank
And what are you
you.
doing differently than us?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that
Sometimes it's just
question.
bad people are drawn to it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to the question. I mean, I would be honest with you. We have some positions that I'm challenged with filling right now. These are not those positions.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure if the council deems it necessary or appropriate to provide funding, that this funding will actually be used to fill these positions, as opposed to at some point we can't fill these positions, let's allocate this money elsewhere.
Right. So one, I would say to you that if we bring these positions in, they'll be budgeted for this. And once they're budgeted for this, I won't do anything else with it. I would be honest with you though. You all know this. These would be new positions, all right? You guys have a process over here for establishing new positions. It takes a lot of time. Everybody go like this. Everybody knows, right? These would be new positions, and I would deal with some of that same establishing. Now, they are not brand new positions. They are additional positions in that job title, so that helps speed it along. But it will take a minute, and the sooner I know, the better about this, because I need to get this in the budget, because this is not in the budget right now. If we can get this in the budget and keep rolling, it helps. If this doesn't get in the budget, then I have to accept it into the budget. I have to establish the position. I have to get authorization to fill the position. Remember, I'm working in government like you guys. You guys use these exact same processes, so you know that there's a timetable for this. But this money would be earmarked in a budget for this, and I would not be asking ever to do anything else with it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Robinson.
I only have 2 questions, and my first question would be, you just shared with us you get thousands of calls every day. So
Well, not every day, but throughout the year. We get hundreds a day, absolutely.
I know you get hundreds because they call
Yes,
me too.
Yes, ma'am.
My concern is, so you cover more than Shelby County.
We do.
So will these positions be covering the other counties as well?
These positions will be answering that phone line. I can't tell
Anybody that
you.
calls?
We have people who call from 50 states. We have people who get the wrong number and call from Nashville. We have people who call from all kinds of counties, right?
But we respond to who? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
The Aging Commission responds to people who live in Fayette, Lauderdale, Shelby, and Tipton counties. But I would say this, Commissioner Robinson, I think you know this, 90% of the people we support are citizens of the city of Memphis.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure that my colleagues understood.
Oh, absolutely. And so remember the presentation I made you all last week, and I showed to you all the units and the number of people? That was only for the city of Memphis. And so that's about 85 to typically 90% of every bit of business we do. There are more seniors in Shelby County than there are people living in Fayette, Lauderdale, and Tipton counties combined.
Okay, so.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So my next question, based on the salary of these people, what would their background need to look like to do those jobs?
We would hire someone with a bachelor's degree to do the information specialist, and the administrative technician would not need a degree.
Okay,
We look for people with social work sorts of background, because that's what people need to talk to a person with a social work sort of background.
Okay. And over time, we would have to increase that. Am I correct?
So what I would tell you is, and I'm just, I'm just looking at that. So some of that equipments and furnishings that we have in there, since we're establishing from the floor, that would shift to salary and fringes over time. But yes, these would be a continual need.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Some of those questions that Councilwoman Robinson asked was my concern, that I would hate to employ individuals and turn around and funding would not be available the next year for these individuals and where we would be. And these are $16 an hour jobs that we're looking at?
I haven't done the math on what the hourly wage is.
Okay, that seems really low if you gotta have a bachelor's degree, but I would only assume that's what you're currently paying other employees.
These are the beginning salaries of what we currently pay, yes, ma'am.
All right, we know we like it a little bit higher around here, so that was my concern. Thank you for your explanation, Christian.
Yes, it's concerning to me as well. We operate on this funding offered to us by the state of Tennessee primarily, and these salaries are commensurate across the state in the AAADs.
Councilwoman Logan.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned that there were some other positions that you could have brought forth, but these are the ones you brought forth, and I'm assuming it's because you figured you could get the best buck for your bang for your buck. However, I am curious, because what you mentioned the last time, that one of the more pressing issues was not having enough staff to deploy in whether it's helping someone in your home who needs assistance, and what people are calling for. You don't have staff to send them out, and a lot of the nonprofits are not able to staff as well. So I do understand bringing these, people in to answer those calls and to pass the calls along. How are we how are you going to address not having the staff to do the work?
Right. We brought these particular items forward at the bequest of Councilwoman Robinson. I think what you're referring to is a statement that we were talking about previously about the difficulty in hiring people who act as personal assistants or homemakers in people's homes. And we contract those services out to a variety of home health organizations throughout the area. I can tell you that we are in contact with those organizations continually. The rate by which we are able to offer those organizations is capped by the state of Tennessee, who provides all the funding for this, at $22.73 currently. There's not anything I can do about that. And so there is nothing I can do about that, because the Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disability will not authorize the aging commissions across the state to pay more than what TennCare pays currently, because they don't want the AAADs competing with TennCare, right? And so that is the current cap on the hourly rate or the unit. And so, unfortunately, it is a market-driven task, and at the current time, it is the most difficult thing to purchase, just because there are not people who will take on the jobs of homemakers and personal assistants. Thank you. That's a wonderful question, and I like to talk about that with people. You guys are keenly interested in supports and services for people who are aging. There are some complex issues that are on the horizon for us, right? That we all, and I say we all, I mean people in this country, like literally all of us, really need to think about. we have some incredible challenges on the horizon.
Like meaningful Social Security reform?
Yeah, did you read all of that stuff today out there? Man, I can't even talk about that, right? We don't have enough time to get into that. I'd love to talk about that over coffee someday, right? Yeah, right?
All right, colleagues, any other questions? Any other comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
You.
I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you all. I hear from many of you all time to time independently. You call me and I get the opportunity to help you or get someone in my office help you or help your constituents. Please don't hesitate to call on us. We are there to help you at any time. And just thank you so much for your support.
Absolutely. Thank you for the work. All right. Right, friends. Yes, ma'am.
Will you please add that to my wish list?
It's already on here.
We have on mounts.
Yeah,
We just got there.
I got it.
Okay, thank you.
I got you. 110 and some change. Some change at 110 for 110,455.20. We may even round it up to full dollar. Is that, we good? Okay. One of the amounts was wrong. All right. One is missing. All right. We'll have that bad boy first.
It's the last one.
Draft 3.0 coming out. Team. All right. Before we hop into the council-led, one, I would say for me, I was telling Chief Ford, this has been the most educational budget season that I think I've had, where I feel like we've got really deep into some subject matters and learned a lot more, and it's been very helpful, especially on like some of the special revenue funds, how that works, and you know, as we kind of get into this for the councils of this transition year, I think it's going to help us help the next administration and our colleagues next year in a very meaningful way. I feel much more comfortable understanding the budget than I ever have before. Also, I want to thank the administration for all of the follow-ups over the week while we were out. Chief Ford got, and have we sent that to everybody, the division CIP follow-up?
I sent it to you, man, we sent out some.
No, but they sent the written, this is more CIP update from Q3. I know I got it. Yes, did that come to all council members? Okay, so you should have, just FYI, you should have received, and if you haven't, we'll make sure it gets distributed. Chief Ford had all of the division directors go through their CIP budget for FY23, the current fiscal year, and notate where they are, what's going on. What are you listening? What are you listening to? Anyway, you'll start getting those updates. I think it'll be helpful. It's very informative. I appreciate the directors for doing that. A little extra homework when you're not spending your money is always worth it. And hopefully it informs some of your decisions as a member going into FY24 CIP. A lot of follow-up requests have occurred. A lot of information has been turned over. Have you guys had a chance to look at this one? I think you guys had it. We're still waiting on some follow-up information. If we could try and close the gap over the next week and a half, that would be helpful. A lot of it, I think, is more informative than rather impactful to the vote, I think. But that's my personal opinion. I just want to make sure that votes aren't held up because people are waiting on something is probably the biggest thing to say. So we've got a smooth finish. Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. Shirley Ford, Chief Financial Officer. Yes, I know that some of the responses and requests have gone, directly to council members, and some of them we were not copied on. So we're like, well, you have to answer this, and they already have. So what we intend to do is to use this comprehensive list and then just recap all of the information for everybody.
Perfect.
So that we can have those, and anybody can, and we're following your numbering system, like response number 1. And if there are 2 specific items to a number, we're calling them 1A and 1B, so that you can see what they are. So yes, it is our intent to have all of that recaptured for you by next week.
Fantastic. So moving on to the master council-led initiative / wish list. So if you'll look through, there is a comprehensive number, but some of them are options like, for instance, Councilwoman Easter Thomas has option 1, option 2, right? The cost to renovate versus build new, but those are both added up. So we're gonna add another column here before you guys leave, probably not today, but before we get out of here for the weekend, that will let you know if these are administration return numbers or if they are council-led numbers. So you just know that, hey, that's a hard number based on that specific request versus something that I would say might be fungible based on maybe a programming idea by a council member, just so you have an idea of, either the whole project has to get cut because that's what it costs to do X, or, and I'll use one like affordable housing. Again, it could just be the fact that we'd love to do 10 million and it's just not gonna work, but if we cut that by 5 million, it may allow another initiative to be saved. So I wanna make sure that we notate that so people understand where the number originated from as well. Jones, you've done this a couple times. Morgan, any ideas on how you any thoughts on how you wanna kind of attack this?
Well, just first stab at it, I'm adding some numbers up here. What could be helpful is if we had a separate number for CIP, a separate number for operating.
So you should on the bottom right. Did you get a first page? See it?
Okay,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Now, and I will say this, remember, CIP can be one of 2 things. Chief Ford says we're tapped out on debt. She's pretty much right, always right. And the reality is too, and the thing that we really haven't talked about, and we'll talk about it maybe on Tuesday a little bit, if not, we can push it to another wrap up, is we are gonna extend the city's full faith and credit in all likelihood. We're gonna issue bonds, assuming there's 7 votes to do so. State's given us, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the state has given us permission and reauthorized the ability for the FedEx Forum to collect no longer just the MBA sales tax, but all sales tax related to the FedEx Forum through 2059, 52, 59, somewhere in there. It's in the 50s. So in order to utilize that, I assume the idea is that we're going to go and reissue bonds, which they're revenue bonds. The city will, 59? Yeah. So the city's credit will stand behind that, which is a contingent liability, but it's still on the city's books. If there's ever shortfall, same deal. Same with the rental car fee at the airport goes directly to and can only be used for the sports authority / the arena. And that will also have to be another bond issuance in order to support the FedEx Forum. And so I assume those votes will be coming late in the fall-ish. Yeah. So, and I only raise that because it's something we haven't talked as a part of budget season, but it will impact the city's books. But I would call it a contingent liability personally. But they will be on there. So some of those things will be coming down the pipeline. CIP can always be cash, and but if it's a debt piece out of this year's GO bond, and I would like you to go on the record with this, it is likely you're going to have to cut something else out. Would you mind just addressing that? The city's, where we are in the city's debt policy and the comptroller's position.
Thank you. We are currently, as we said, at the top of our debt capacity based on where we are. And so we have been very careful, and thank you over the years that you have helped us do this, to keep our GO bond CIP money and our request for the current year not more than we're paying back in principal, right? So that we're kind of living within our means while we look for that great horizon in 2027. So we are at that capacity. We are currently proposing a budget of 96 million in GO bonds, and that is about the maximum that we can do in 1 year. And I think that's part of what we were looking at, Councilman Carlisle, with where are we on our FY23 spend? Are there some areas that we haven't been able to execute that we can carry over into the current year to reduce the new ask or reallocate that new ask? But 96 million is going to put us at the top of our debt capacity for funding for CIP from GO bonds.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir,
I have a
Chairman
question
Jones.
But Ms. Ford.
Yeah, please.
That's based upon the debt service rate being where it is right now. Is that correct? So if we adjust that debt service rate higher, then we're looking at a different capacity number. Is that correct?
So the amount of debt is the amount of debt. So if you increased the amount that would go into the debt service fund to service that debt, that's not going to change the capacity that we can borrow at. That will just change the value, how quickly you could pay it back.
The coverage ratio, basically.
Okay.
That's a fair question. I mean, and again, it's honestly, even though we still borrow pretty cheap compared to the basic market, good time to use cash if you're going to do something, I would think.
You know, if you recall, I was saying a couple of years ago, we look at, and I'm not going to do this, I told you so, but
do it.
But we should have increased the capital pay-go based upon, I didn't have a crystal ball to basically say where interest rates were going. But I just said if we would have increased the capital pay-go, to use analogies that people can understand, that's putting more money into your savings account because you know that your credit card interest rate is going to go up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's fair. All right. You still didn't answer my question, though, Jonesy. How do you guys want to? Do you guys want to talk about these one by one? Do you just want to take them home and think about them? Go ahead. No, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it's all right. One by one council member each talk. Okay.
I was going to say, we've talked about each of these through the committees and they've been thrown out there, but now having it all together on one sheet, I think the one by one conversation would be more productive if we have some time to go and work with these numbers ourselves. Maybe some people might come back with the total package of trying to massage and put these things together. Because if we go through one by one right now, we could talk about all these until, forever. We're passionate about every single one of these subjects, but I don't know if we'll be productively working towards how to fit them in the budget other than just feeling people's passions for them, which will be high on each issue.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And the other thing I'd like to say, too, is that we have to pass a balanced budget. We are required.
And also, I'll say, it sounds like there might be some amendments. Can we have a deadline to get those amendments and this resent out this weekend? Something like that?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. We've got, and I was just telling Chief Ford, especially being respectful of the director's time and what's going on. I know we've got some directors that are leaving. We did.
In the red dress?
I haven't seen any of those.
It's and you will be missed. It's a great article last week. No, I think that would be helpful. And like I said, what I'd like to do too is if you have an item that you think would require some extra explanation or a director to come and talk about an initiative that you got, I think that would be helpful. In particular, like I know Bakara and Andre were here. Like there's some, hey, their ask is 15-1 to stay flat. 9's being proposed. If they got 11, if they got 7, what would that do to their service model? Same for the home repair program, right? Every dollar more you can give to it helps, but there are going to be some tough things. Chairman Jones, what is the value of a penny this year?
$1.4 million.
1.4. So, and also to that point, again, to the balanced budget, like we either have to find the cuts or have to have the intestinal fortitude to to raise the tax rate. The one thing I will say is I am concerned about a significant tax increase, not because of the politics per se locally. When Nashville had to raise their tax rate a significant amount, it drew the attention of the General Assembly. And they had considered legislation of a statewide law capping the year-over-year tax rate so that didn't occur again. And so I'm not afraid to raise it. I just want us to be very cognizant that a 35, 45, or 50-cent tax rate probably might put us in the crosshairs. And I'm not sure that that's going to be very popular, even if we think it's necessary. So I just say that to say it, just so everybody keeps that kind of in mind as you're reflecting and thinking through it. While we're here, are there any items that are incorrect or that are not on here or that, yes, ma'am, Councilwoman Robinson?
Okay. I heard your question, but I had another question before.
That's all right.
And I need some assistance of my council people. So in the Oak Haven area, we only had one grocery store and one Family Dollar. They are both now closed. And we don't have public transportation that's capable of getting them to Hickory Hill or to Whitehaven in a manner that they could get there. So as a team, can we suggest something to help those people out? And this is what I thought about. The reason that the owners of those businesses left was because people kept burglarizing them. We make sure that communities and neighborhoods have cameras. Our business owners pay taxes as well. Can we start doing some cameras in areas of businesses so that we can attract or keep some of the businesses that we have in our communities? Or do we need to shift that money to Matter so those people can go somewhere and buy some groceries? We got to make a decision. They are in dire need. When they called and told me that they were closed, I worked so hard to make sure that every segment of that end of our city had an opportunity to get fresh fruit, vegetables, and meat. And even Family Dollar has started selling food in the freezer department. So, but now they don't have either one of those. And either we got to provide transportation or we got to help these business owners with providing some safety around their businesses. Can you help me? You got some ideas. That's what I need.
Yeah, I mean, the cameras don't effectively prevent or deter anymore, which is unfortunate, even with the Memphis Connect program, which allows business owners to install their own cameras and dial in. Loss prevention has closed businesses all around the country, and it's really unfortunate. And the thing for even Memphis that I hear often that is true is like we've shifted some of the burden of public safety onto the private sector in the form of security guards, right? So like you're a small business owner, to have an armed security guard for 12 hours a day, it costs you $96,000 a year, thereabouts. I mean, it's significant. I don't have an answer. I'm happy to dive into it. I know that Edmund Ford, Commissioner Ford, helped work with South Memphis to get a grocery store in another area, and with the mayor and the administration, maybe an opportunity for some sort of subsidized opportunity there. I don't know. And then in the meantime, the Works has the mobile grocery store, and I think we can get Rashawn and them to do extra runs until we figure out a more permanent solution.
Okay, thank you.
But man, that's the toughest thing. They're terrorizing people and the small business owners in their own community. Man, so, yes, Councilwoman.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Could we actually pay for these security guards in the grocery stores? If we can convince the grocery businesses to come back, could we pay for it?
So it's interesting. I have said this in a different way, and yours comes off a lot more, and you're probably a better deliverer of that message than being the white guy up here. But well, but basically what you're saying is should the city of Memphis engage in contract security? Right? Like, does it make sense to have 25 police officers at the head of Beale Street on a Saturday night when they could have private security contractors and spread the police department out. And I know that the mayor's considered that, and I know that there are pros and cons, both legal and practical. But the answer is I'm sure there's a mechanism. I don't know what the scope of that would look like. I mean, and then how you would choose who does and doesn't get a subsidized security guard. I get that. I don't know about y'all, but I get that question all the time about should the city hire a form of private security.
But Chair, it's a situation we sitting in now, we don't even have a business for them to operate out of. So it wouldn't be a discussion about who's gonna get it.
Yeah, I think the two.
If we can convince one to come back.
Well, I think the two near-term things to do to demonstrate market viability would be to have the mobile grocery store and beef up MATA. The on-demand service, especially in Councilman Ford's district, has, I think, been very successful. I know it took a minute. Yeah. So I think that that's an option now. It's just every time you roll it out into a new neighborhood, especially those that are predominantly seniors, getting them comfortable with the process. When somebody's had a routine for 40 years, it's tough to change that. But it goes back to funding for MATA. I mean, that's going to be the big thing. Does anybody have any other? Yes, sir, Chairman Jones.
Mr. Chairman, I would like for Ms. Owens to distribute. I just wanted to present something for consideration and discussion going forward. Not asking for anybody to vote on this right now.
Oh, baby.
But what you will have in front of you pretty soon is, let's just call it revenue enhancement in order to address some of the issues that we have. Now, I want to take you back about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, when we had the opportunity, when our tax rate was at 319, took it to 271. And I had a suggestion that instead of taking it to 271, we take it to $3. That $3 would have generated about 40, well, based upon today now, that difference generates about $40,600,000 in additional revenues. So colleagues, if we look at the number, this is an operating number. If we look at this total number that's on this large spreadsheet of 36.5 million, this, now, no, if you look at this right here under operating, this first sheet, under operating, this particular revenue enhancement here covers everything on this list. Now, there are some blanks in here, but I just present this as a starting point. Now, if you look at the sheets here, I'll give you some numbers based upon a penny generating $1.4 million. If we look at MATA based upon what the sheet is, you may want to write it down. 8 cents is 11.2 million. So that would be the case for MATA and solid waste. 4 cents is $5.6 million. That would be the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the creation of an Opportunity Youth Fund. And then 7 million for general fund. So that general fund can be used for anything. Like I said, colleagues, this is a starting point. So 11.2 MATA operations and solid waste.
Not together.
Each. So 8 cents represents 11.2. 4 cents represents 5.6. So 11.2, 5.6, 11.2, 5.6, and then 7. Yes, the 5 cents represents 7 million. The total of all, so if we take 29 cents times 1.4 million, you get this 40,600,000, you get 40,600,000. So colleagues, I present this just as a starting point that covers a lot of the things on our wish list. Now, I would say that one of the other things too, perhaps if we can look at this solid waste, Ms. Ryan, I would, if it's possible, it may not be possible, an offset in the solid waste fee on people's utility bills. It may not be that, but it's still some relief. If we generate this $11 million, can it possibly offset what the solid waste fee on people's utility bills may be? So I don't know to what extent we can, if we need to take it up to a figure in order to do so. But colleagues, for us to have one thing that this will do, this will address, and I think that I got the email, I think somebody else, I think we got an email. And I still go back to, there was a picture, I think it was in Fox Meadows. There's a picture of, we had an empty lot and we had trash in front of it. Putting it on the property tax essentially says and there was no meter there, a vacant lot. Our model right now basically says if there's no vacant lot right there, generally speaking, we do not generate money to pick up the trash there. So this is a way of doing that. So colleagues, I just present this as a starting point for discussion. The only one I'm just sort of married to, and probably would like it more, would be MATA. But colleagues, we can work with everything else. So this is just a starting point, something for us to take home, but it still gets us, based upon everything that's presented here, it takes care of our wish list. Tweak it up and down, but just starting point, colleagues.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Jones. And it's always, I said to somebody, who's going to make the first move? I should have known. So if you go from, what'd you say, 271?
71.
You'd go to $3.
What I talked about 2 years ago.
And by the way, we can do this, and since we share the same analyst, here's what I'd like for you to do.
Analyst.
Will you just do a quick calc on an average home of $120,000?
Yep.
And you got
I
it?
had it from 2 years ago.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's it's not much. It's like $100.
No, it's not at all. Let's see.
The average home price in Memphis is somewhere around, the median home price is somewhere around there.
No, okay, so keep this in mind, colleagues. This is going back.
It's the whole city.
So this is going back to, my calculation here was at 302, because I was at 302 a couple of years ago and then went down to 3. But for a home that's assessed at that's valued at $123,000, the assessment on that is $30,750. That's a monthly increase of $10.80 per month.
Right.
On 123. Well, no, that's at 302. So let me.
But still, I mean, hey, look, you're in the wheelhouse. Yeah, your points.
About
You're in the
$10
wheelhouse.
a month. About $10 a month on a $123,000 home. For a $73,000, and that, like I said, that's at. Let me see.
When would the council be considering this?
Okay, on a home that's valued at $73,000, that's a $6.18 a month increase. Yeah. $10.29 on a home that's at $123,000.
We just do every $100,000 of value on the home, it's $6 a month.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Before I go to Councilman Robinson, Councilman Smiley just asked me when we were considering this. I'm happy to, because $6 for every 100,000. So I'm happy to actually, now since this is so early, what I'd like to do is put this on as a resolution on the 13th, and we can start it then. That way people can bring amendments and start the conversation. And then we also keep in mind, we have Chief Ford's, what do we call it? Dual? It's not dual. It's a all-encompassing now. We used to have 2 documents, all-encompassing ordinance, and then, because eventually, and I think, I'll talk out of turn, I think eventually what Chairman Jones is attempting to do here, if I read this properly, other than the last general fund line item, is create enterprise funds. Is that fair?
No, well,
it is, but it isn't.
Supplement. We all of this goes to the general fund, but it's a supplement to our.
I think I mean, it can be changed by future councils, but you're trying to put a map out there. All right, Councilwoman Robinson.
I have a question. So the amounts that we see here in this chart will be in addition to the amounts that we already have in our budget?
Yes.
Okay. So the CIP budget, those items that we saw where people haven't spent that money and rolled it over, we can still use those dollars somewhere else?
Are you talking about FY23? So go through their list. A lot of those, I think that was the purpose is, and Chief Ford, I'm going to get you to fill in here, but as a matter of fact, Chief Ford, why don't you address that since you had the directors?
So, excuse me, what we asked the directors to do is, we presented the Q3 plus April, because we were running so close, so that you could see where we were on the execution of the GEO bond spending, and not just the GEO bond spending, but all of our spending for capital programs, both for the general fund type activities and the sewer and stormwater. So we had a lot of areas where we did not have execution, and in some of the areas they had not appropriated the money yet. So what we asked each one of the directors to do that have projects for CIP for FY23 is to give us an update, like why haven't we executed? Where are we? Is it late contracts? So that we could provide that information to you so you could see if there was something that we had a project that had 23 and 24 funding to get it through. And I'll use the Lester Community Center as an example. We were not able to execute fully on the FY23 Lester Community money. So we shifted the FY24 money that we previously had allocated for Lester and moved it around to different projects, some of them at your request, some of them at administrations. But the point of them kind of being, without having to come and go through every single project here with you, was to give you a narrative form of where we are on each one of those projects and where we have capacity to perhaps shift the money into 24, or if it's not going to happen in 24, put it somewhere else and pick it back up in 25.
That's an excellent idea. Now, the last question I have is on solid waste. We were given a presentation where we wanted an additional amount of money for solid waste. Would this 11.2 million take us above what they've already asked us, or does it replace that? Maker of the motion.
Well, I don't know what their shortfall was, but I know there were a couple of presentations that they talked about a proposed increase. So I don't know. This may, whatever that increase that may have been part of their presentation, it could very well shrink what their proposed increase is.
Okay.
I don't know. I'd have to. I brought this forth without looking at their presentation.
Okay. So can you, Chandrea, can you answer that?
Yes, ma'am. Depending on which option ultimately council goes with, it's about 15 million or more. So for the option that basically keeps status quo but adds more enforcement so we can create some behavior change, that one was an additional, looks like 15 million a year, and there's an escalation that goes along with that. So that's with that particular model. The other model was a bit less, and
Ms. Ryan, while you think about that,
Sure.
but that 15 increase came with what type of dollar increase though?
for the rate ended up going to $40.75 from $29.96.
So,
This is a better way to make
right.
it
So
happen.
we do it that way, then that the delta that we have in there is only $4 million versus $11 million. So we wouldn't be looking at a $10 increase on our solid waste fee in order to address that, because we've generated 11 million of that 15 that they're talking about.
Thank you. That is very clear, and I think the citizens would like that.
And may I make one caveat, because I know your comments, Mr. Chairman, has been around going to different lots. This cost proposal does not contemplate that.
Okay.
So right now we have about 172,000 sites or customers that we see on a weekly basis. If we were talking about increasing to more parcels, then we would need to come back and cost that and tell you what that would cost.
But colleagues, I still think that this is a step to get us a cleaner city. Just looking at the solid waste portion of it, because I just refuse to believe that keeping the status quo and not doing anything differently is going to make our city cleaner. This is just a step in that direction.
You're absolutely correct. Will you move your item? So I know we said we were gonna put it on there, but we need to vote on that, Mr. Chair.
Well, we're gonna vote on it when we hear it officially.
Okay.
We're discussing it today.
Okay.
We're gonna have it on the agenda for a vote on Tuesday that would be take effect and set the tone for the 27th.
Okay, thank you.
And that way people can, especially young people. I'll probably on the mic. Yes, so no vote today. This is a discussion on what's before you. We will have this heard in Budget Committee officially with any amendments to this or substitute resolutions. And then what Jonesy's done here that is helpful is he's kind of laid out his big buckets where it's going to get dicey, not dicey for him, but is in the general fund. So let's just say this is ratified as is. Then we've got he's directed basically a MATA grant, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and the Solid Waste Fund are all that's directly to, we know where that's going. The Opportunity Youth Fund is a creation. So then it's, I guess, and I have questions for you on that. How does that get divvied up? 2 million for libraries, 2 million, you don't have to answer that today. But to the point, the general fund is going to have to find a place to go, or else Shirley's just going to end up having this massive rainy day fund, right? Because it goes to unassigned fund balance to balance the budget. So I think about some of those things, and it could go to capital pay go. It could go to, so you got to figure out what to do. Councilwoman Johnson.
Thank you. It sounds as though people are very much interested in this approach. So my question is, would it be possible for MATA and even solid waste to come back and tell us exactly what they would do with this $11 million in both of those settings?
Yes, ma'am. So this is what I'd like to do. I was going to have it on Monday, but Brianna is out and she's been tracking, and we have a great staff backup. But what I'd like to do is come back on the 12th, Monday the 12th, with the directors you want to see, so that going into the 13th, we're ready to go. And then if need be, we'll probably go at least one more wrap-up meeting, I think. But at least we will have a piece of legislation that will be set for the agenda on the 27th, which would be this piece of legislation, however it ends up in final form with however many sponsors. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilwoman.
I'm sure did I hear that right? We're gonna wait a week?
Well, keep in mind, we don't meet until the 13th.
But what about next week? We're not gonna deal with budget at all? We're gonna just,
We don't meet next week unless we.
like I'm saying, are we ready?
Nope.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So we'll meet on the 12th.
So that's just one day. So we miss next week, we're out.
Yes.
And so then you come back on one day. How do we get a chance to go through our wish list?
You don't have to. We're just talking about this one thing to talk about it. We have another week and a half after that before we even go for the final vote. We have until the 27th of June to vote on the budget. So we have 3 weeks. That's all. And I've got 2 staff members that are going to be out that are pretty critical. And Jeff is out till the 6th. So,
Well,
yeah.
that's the best we can do. That's all we can do.
You got all the time in the world. That's all I'm saying. We got more time, and we don't want to come down to the last minute, but
That's what I would be concerned about.
But you have,
waiting.
okay, so we've got the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, the 15th. Then you've got the 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and then the 26th to meet before the last vote on the 27th.
Okay. You say so, but I'm just still thinking there's gonna be a lot of discussion on some of these items to go forward or not go forward with them. And I mean, we're just limited on the funds, and some of these items, we are looking at even with MATA. I guess if you increase the taxes, but next year somebody may decrease the taxes, then you go forward, but then you didn't pave a way for the future to keep going. And I'm concerned about some of those activities.
Right.
How do you be consistent with it going down the road?
Yeah, here's my thing. I don't want to sit down a bunch of times not ready to discuss it. And so giving people, this is the first time this council's seen this document. This document, you haven't received all the information. And so I don't want to sit down and have a bunch of directors come up here and we're not ready to have that conversation. So this gives directors a week to finish getting all the information in, council members a week to get questions answered, to meet if they need to, and then come back collectively to the body. When we come back, we have 2 full weeks before we have to pass the budget. That seems like ample time to me. Well, don't do that. My wife doesn't. She's right 99%
Mr. Chair.
time. Don't do that. Yes, Councilman Morgan.
Mr. Chair, and say, I mean, there's going to be plenty of work being done. And I think council members, if you've got questions or you need to dig in, this is a great time to go see the directors one-on-one. And rather, you know, if there's an issue that you want to be more informed on and hear, and do that on, I guess, on next week's perfect time to do it, rather than maybe half the council's ready to go on the issue and 2 members are still have questions on it. Because we will, once we come all together and we're together, you know, back together again, that needs to be the time to be looking at full scope macro picture on the budget rather than the micro line by line. So
You guys aren't going anywhere,
and
are
I
you?
say other council members, this is a perfect time to get
Everybody else just jumping ship.
yourself good to go on the micro and the line items. So when we're together, we can have productive time talking about the macro.
And again, we've got, I mean, I'm telling you, there's more. I have Brianna who has started a binder, and I'm happy to have her hand it off to your other analysts and EAs. There is so much information that's been requested to go through. I'm just, again, until people look at it ready to go, I just don't see the need. I'm happy to meet Monday. I'm not available the rest of the next week, but Brianna's gone, Liza's gone, Jeff's gone. So
About Monday and Tuesday.
yeah, exactly. So let's just, we've got time. Again, as long as you guys, I'm not going to get another email from the mayor saying you guys are gone, you know, in the middle of budget season. Dang it. All right. Is it? Yeah. So there we go. I will say this, like, I'll give you an example because I know Leo brought this up to me about, you know, funding levels. It's a fair question, right? Like 15-1 was the ask from MATA for stable. Either we're going to get to 15 or we're not. If you don't, then what, you know, MATA needs to have the opportunity to say, these are the things that we can do at these funding levels so that the council, whether popular or not, understands the decision it's going to make and the repercussions of that decision. And so, like, we need to be able to submit that to them, allow them time to do that work and come back. I know that we had all these directors in there and most of them know their businesses very well, but I think it's fair, in fairness to them, to have those questions so they can come, they can state their position on the record. It's out there. I think we're facing, you know, one of the, I can feel it in the room that we are probably looking at one of the larger increases in revenue in a long time. It doesn't scare me, to be honest, because I have a conviction that it's time. I respectfully disagree with the mayor's position. We're just in a unique environment where the cost of doing business has gone up. While we've had really great fortune in sales tax over the last couple of years, I'm not sure how long that's going to last based on the economic headwinds and the things that we're dealing with here. I don't know that our tourism business is going to hang on the way it is. So, you know, people, I guess the general feeling I get is people are looking for value, right? Like they're looking for us to deliver the services that they paid for, whatever the cost may be. And if we don't do anything, you know, and again, respectfully to the mayor, like if we don't do anything, I'm not sure people are willing to wait 3 years. And those with the ability to move are talking about it. And that's not good. You know, that's not the most eloquent way I can say it. So I'm rambling now. Okay. Please look over the list. If you guys have questions for me, you can please send them to me. We'll try and get you responses. If you need to sit down or you want to talk with me or Chairman Jones, and you know, obviously I guess we can't talk collectively, but if you want to talk about some of these things that are in the proposal, you know, we'll try and facilitate those through our research analyst. And then are there any, and then also just to get back to this, please look over the list and make sure that if it's not in here, it wasn't a slight, we just may have missed it. So please make sure that you review it. and this will be the last thing I'll say because I think it's fair. To Chief Ford's point, they spend an inordinate amount of time going from the service center level all the way up to build this budget. And one, thank you, and thank you to all your teams and directors. I know how hard that is. I know it's time consuming. And I know especially with individuals. What's that? Mater sick. That's right, Mater sick. But I think I would say this, and I'll try, and I've challenged myself to do this too. Whether we end up agreeing or disagreeing on where a cut could be made, I think this body, it's incumbent on themselves to tighten the belt and not just say all of this is increased funding level. I know that there are things in our council budget that we need to probably review, and I'll hold that now. But I think there are things. I know it's a very tight budget, and again, I'm trying to be. I don't want to say the wrong thing and feel like I'm stepping on your toes, but I don't think it's also fair to just go to taxpayers and say it's a perfect budget and we want to add 40 cents to your tax rate on top of all that. I'm sure there are certain things that even in the council budget that we can go without in order to fund some of these things that we think are a higher priority. So, yeah, so I think that's critical. I think we have to make the tough decisions on certain objectives and certain groups. And I'm just going to use CLRB as an example, but I'm sure I'll take it off the chin from a certain group. But I don't know what the future of CLRB is going to look like. That's $365,000 a year in annual funding. We need to have a conversation with Colonel Kirkwood and the CLRB to understand what their function is going to be with the new state law. So, and that may be something we need to have to start looking at those things. There are just programs out there that have worked and some that haven't, and we need to determine some of those things. So,
Yeah, he does have a plan.
he does. When's he come? Can you get him to come?
Yes,
is he available to
absolutely,
come?
He wants to. Yeah, we'll put him on there for the next agenda.
Yeah, that would be great. And if we run out of time, we'll have him in the budget wrap up because, again, I'm supportive of CLRB, but I personally would like to, and I can call myself too.
Yeah.
I'd like to understand
We've talked
the
about it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I've rambled on long enough. Any other questions, comments? Is everybody comfortable with this plan? Chief Ryan?
Just before we wrap, I just have a request. Okay, so I want to ask for the June 13 meeting. Because it has been pushed back, we have a lot of budgetary items. We're at the end of the year and people are spending down their funds and they need to move some things around. And because we only have June 13 and we've got the 27th.
What are we talking about? I mean, let's go ahead and be specific. What are we, you're talking about appropriations?
Appropriations, yes.
You guys.
Right. Yeah, so I'm asking that we probably will have a number of same night minute type of items so that we can get items.
I'm sorry.
In all sincerity, how many are you thinking? I mean, ballpark it. I mean, I my staff, we need to know. Yeah, hop in there. I mean, let's just go ahead and get this planned out.
So I think there are a couple of things. One, some of the resolutions for appropriations, but also of major concern is areas where, as you said, we're at service center level and divisions need to move between legal levels.
Oh, yeah.
And we've already moved as much as we can without coming to council. So I have some red lines because otherwise they're failing funds, right? So, and I can't do that until you give me permission to do that. So when we bring those red lines to you on the 13th, that we'll be asking for same night minutes on those so we can get them posted. And I'm going to put a pin in that for you because if they're failing funds and they're not paying their invoices to our vendors,
but how many items are we talking? Because I'm trying to think.
It's a lot.
Like 25, 30?
The list, the journal entry that police gave us was almost 20 pages long. Now, not all of them are red lines. Some of them are black lines, but I can't, I can only go so far.
I will take one from the team and we will plan to start my committee at like 7 in the morning.
So
Jonesy, I may have to kick some to yours.
7 in the
So
morning.
we are trying
I already know where this is going.
So we are trying to make sure, because if
I'll
I
come by
can't, if I
myself.
can't pay vendors, then when I'm giving you what I think is going to be our forecast, which is another piece of the items that you guys are looking for, I'm not going to be able to gauge if they're sitting on $5 million
All right,
worth of
but
unpaid
here's
invoices.
the deal then. Here's the deal. I'm willing to go early and go early, or go early in the morning and go long. What I would request is you give me, or this body, an executive summary of what is coming. It does
Okay,
not
that's
have to be
fair.
long.
That's fair.
It can be abstracts and early. What's very difficult is to get that, because they don't share. You can imagine that council members may argue about start times and agenda items. So we don't see, other than the chairman, we don't see the agenda until you guys do. And so when you've got that number of same night minutes, we're getting it very late. Understanding that you're asking for a significant amount of same night minutes, not that there's any, it'd be nice to the sooner that we can get just an understanding of what that is, that would be very helpful. It'll allow people just to say, if there are any issues, to give you guys also a heads up. Like, and if you don't have all of them, that's fine, but as many that you've got that you can put in a 4 or 5 sentence,
Here's what it looks like.
yeah, that would, I think, would be helpful. However, whatever format you want. It doesn't need to be a 900-page document, but especially if you think something in your infinite wisdom may be an issue.
Right.
Yeah. That way we're not caught debating something because people are reacting to have seen it for the first time. And then I have a sneaking suspicion we may kick some of these to the afternoon. Can you get a list of how many you think, you don't have to give it the captions, but like a number, so that we can start to plan the damn schedule. Darn schedule, shucks.
So, and Chairman, may I ask you this? So for those that are appropriations, obviously those are separate.
Right.
But for those that are red lines, would it be more beneficial for our time purposes for finance to bring that in one big comprehensive resolution?
I'm always about that.
To kind of move it so that we can, and instead of having 7 different
And
resolutions.
if I can, I'm going to try and put it on
divisions,
consent. Yeah, I mean, it makes the vote that night much easier too.
Okay.
Like much easier. Please don't make me vote on 37 same night minute items.
Thank you.
All right, I'll be interested to see this wrap up. And you don't have to, like I said, I don't want you guys to spend an inordinate amount of time trying to recreate the earth, but just to try and understand what's coming.
We have to know what they are too, and that's
Okay.
they're coming in. I have divisions going. I haven't closed May yet because I've been failing funds and I can't pay my invoices. I'm like,
I'm gonna bet it's Robert Connect. He's always the troublemaker. I'm kidding. He knows. I wish you were in here. Okay. So thank you. Anything else from administration? Okay. Colleagues, anything else from you?
I don't know. I'm contemplating a special coffee.
Oh my God.
I'm just being honest. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. Sounds like the never ending meeting that we had.
Okay.
We got at like 11:59. Y'all got at 11.
Taking one for the team. All right. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.